Okay, well, I see we have some attendees and panelists on the line. My name is Simon Glass. I'm the founder and CEO of Qodeo, and it's wonderful to have such a great attendance globally today, women in venture from so many locations. I'm actually here in New York. We have an esteemed panel today to discuss certain sort of key topics, and I'll come back to who those panelists are in a minute. But we have attendees today from as far afield as Armenia, Boston, Tel Aviv, California, Australia, all kind of times of day and night in various parts of the world. So it's fantastic to have about 100 people have signed up for today's event. Qodeo's mission is to democratize venture and to make capital available and accessible to diverse entrepreneurs and make it much more easy for those entrepreneurs to access that capital. And we'll tell you a little bit more about what Qodeo does. So the theme today about getting women better access to capital is absolutely right in the zone as far as we're concerned. How we do it is through a low-cost web application, Qodeo.com, and I'm sure that Monica will let you know more about that. Today, attendees from around the world are able to actually sign up to Qodeo. We're free to VC and investors, and for entrepreneurs, we're from only $9.95 or 9 Swiss francs, 95, €9.95 per month. But we've got a special discount today. Wow Qodeo, which WOW Qodeo, which Monica will also send out to folks if entrepreneurs want to sign up today as a special women's discount for today. And Monica also, I think, let you know about the following event we've got, which is in Boston, called Boston Venture Post-Pandemic. But there's a number of themes that we want to raise today about how to level the playing field in the venture community. And I remember when we did some early research with Qodeo, we found that often that women entrepreneurs didn't want to work with women VCs because of the lack of empathy they found sometimes from women VCs. And so hopefully that's a changing kind of process now as more women enter the VC and the entrepreneurial community. So today, really enough from me, because I don't want to speak too long, because it's a women's event today, but we're chaired today by Monika Majewska, who's sitting in Poland. She's Anglo-Polish, sits between London and Warsaw, works for Qodeo as our data and social media manager. And it was Monika's wonderful idea to hold and host this event today. We have Anamaria Pantea, who is a great friend of Qodeo on our advisory board, a European expert on innovation based in Malta. We have Daria Abbaei, I hope I pronounced that correctly, in Naples, Florida. Daria is an early stage investor behind a number of early ventures out of the US, and they're based in Naples, Florida, not Naples, Italy, but Naples, Florida. And she'll tell you more about her fund and what they do to make funds available to diverse and female entrepreneurs. And then we're delighted also to have Nina with us, Nina Portier Reinhart, who's from Zurich, and Nina's been involved with SICTIC, which is a very well established, very impressive Swiss early stage group, backing sort of angels and entrepreneur activity across Switzerland, which has also been involved with sort of European Commission work. And we're going to be joined by Shironda White. And Shironda is a sort of serial entrepreneur in Boston. We met through our relationship at Boston University, and she's the cupcake queen of Boston, which I'm sure she'll tell you more about as a serial entrepreneur. So I'll let you ladies sort of take it from here. You women take it from here. It's meant to be a free-flowing discussion today, not a presentation. So Monica will ask a series of quick questions of the panel. The panel will comment, and then the idea is for the attendees today to sort of comment and discuss what's being raised. And we'll run until 2 p.m. East Coast US time, which is 6 p.m. London, 7 p.m. Europe. So it's 1 hour from now. And we look forward to a highly interactive session. If you want to raise things on Q&A or chat, various questions, please feel free to do so. But that's enough from me. And over to you women.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks for that introduction. And thank you all for joining us today for what I'm sure is going to be an interesting and insightful discussion about supporting women in venture. We'll be talking about female entrepreneurs, accomplishments, struggles, and everything in between. And I'm really hoping you enjoy today's session. As Simon mentioned, you can submit questions in the Q&A section, and I'll send you a quick survey, probably tomorrow, just to find out whether you guys enjoy the session and how we can improve it. And if it's a hit, then I'd love to organize these discussions on a regular basis, of course, if Simon allows me. So I'm super excited to announce our amazing panelists. Ladies, please introduce yourselves.
Let me jump in. Anamaria Magri, as Simon was saying, I'm based in Malta, Europe, working across Europe. I am an entrepreneur myself. However, I work in the consulting field, and the areas that I typically get involved in are support for innovative concepts to actually go to the market. So for this, I generally work with entrepreneurs working on accessing finance. This is where a lot of the challenge comes, especially for the women entrepreneurs. And therefore, I typically work with them in accessing various types of finance, from venture to banking finance to public EU funding or national funds that are more and more available, especially to close market gaps. So this is very much the angle that I will bring today. Although I also started to work and get involved as a business angel, part of a number of networks across Europe. Baton to someone else.
Yep. Hi, my name is Daria. Abbaei. I am the Director of Investor Relations at Naples Technology Ventures. Here we invest in early stage technology companies. We only look at B2B SaaS companies, primarily in fintech, health tech, insurtech, and regtech. We have 3 funds right now. We're actively investing out of our second fund, which invests in the late seed series A stage, and our third fund, which also looks at seed series A, but also a little bit earlier stage in pre-seed. And in that third fund, we're only investing in female and other minority entrepreneurs.
Hello, everyone. My name is Shironda White. I am a 2-time entrepreneur. I am founder and CEO of Qodeo, which is a platform that helps students and their families to better understand the true cost of college and how to pay for it. I'm also the co-founder of Cupcake Therapy, which is a premium nut-free, allergy-friendly cupcake company. We're based in Boston, but we ship nationwide.
I guess it's my turn now. I'm Nina Reinhart. Very nice to meet you all. I'm based in Zurich, Switzerland. And I've been an angel investor for many years, mostly in B2B companies, ICT. So they all have a piece of software. They're highly scalable and typically with global ambitions. Since recently, I am fundraising my first fund for later stage, so Series A companies with the same characteristics, B2B software firms, very similar to what Daria was saying. Also fintech, health tech, and general SaaS companies interest me. But those would be for Series A. That means once you have found the company, that you have a confirmed business model, some clients, and you're ready to actually expand, let's say, internationally. So very pleased to be here, and I'll give you back the word, Monica.
Thanks so much, Nina. So my first question for you is, VCP is a very male-dominated industry. How can women get in? Nina or Daria?
To me,
Yeah, I can.
you're asking. So you're asking how a woman can get in as investors or as entrepreneurs?
As investors.
As investors. I think, of course, ideal candidates would have been entrepreneurs themselves. That helps tremendously. If you have been an entrepreneur, you have exited your company, you have, proven that you can go through the whole journey from initiating company to selling it. That's probably the best and easiest way to start. Then you have already a lot of credit, you have already relationships and a nice story to tell. If you don't have this characteristic, I think anybody can enter, but of course it's a long way and it's a very competitive space. So I think just do it, be resilient and continue your journey, build your network. I mean, all these things apply to any industry you want to get into. So I don't see a lot of difference. It's just that it's a very, very concentrated industry, and that makes it especially difficult.
I think I'm going to add to that as well. I think this has been a very male dominant industry, but now there's so many webinars, panel discussions, all of this stuff that that empower female investors to speak up and show their voice and show that they're there. So I think if they're female investors that are looking to get more involved, that's what LinkedIn is for. Definitely utilize all of these social media outlets. Reach out to these other female investors that you know. I mean, I know me personally, if there's a female investor that wants to get more into VC, would love to have a conversation. And I'm sure everyone on this call would absolutely feel the same way.
Yeah, so reaching out on LinkedIn is definitely useful, but also you can reach out to investors or entrepreneurs, depending who you are, on Qodeo. So we have a contact option where you can reach out to interested parties. Thanks so much. I wanted to move on to our next question, which is, what struggles do female entrepreneurs face when trying to raise funds? And I think this is a very good question for Shironda, as she has 2 businesses and she's a very busy lady.
Yeah, so I think in terms of the struggles, so there are struggles that any entrepreneur will face, right, when it comes to raising funds. And then there are struggles that are specific to being a woman in this space. And sometimes it's hard to tell whether the struggles you're having are because you're a woman or just because it's just the space that you're in. So I will say that. One of the biggest challenges I've had has really been just being taken seriously. When it came to Qodeo, we haven't really fundraised yet for Cupcake Therapy. We've gone for like grants and whatnot, so we raised money that way. But when it came to Qodeo and going to angel investors, talking to VCs, the challenge was always that we had issues being taken seriously. We had this market, we have this idea. There are other companies that were, doing something similar where maybe the head is a man, actually 2 different companies that were doing something similar in Boston, led by men, and they were not having the same challenges. They were able to make more progress. It was so much easier for them. And we were really struggling, even though we had the experience. We had over a decade of experience in our field, and they didn't necessarily have that. And so being taken seriously, being in a room where I remember there was one time where it was like, I think 7 men and then me, and it was just like, even fighting to even speak, having someone continuously shut me down. And it's like, well, I know it's not my age, but some of the other men are the same age or around the same age. And so it's like, well, clearly the only difference is that I'm the only woman in the room. And just having people minimize the things that I say and having to continuously say, well, these are my credentials, just to be taken seriously. And so I think that's one of the biggest issues with women is we have to be overqualified. We have to continuously say, here are my credentials in order to be taken seriously by people who either don't have the same credentials or don't have to state what they are in order to be able to make the same effects in the same spaces.
Thanks so much, Shironda.
I would like to add to this, yes, and it's also very much an experience that I'm having through some of my clients, women entrepreneurs. Often, particularly some of the, let's say, even the programs at an European level that are closing market gaps in this area, are very much focused first and foremost on training and coaching, which, whilst it's very much needed for everyone, and the networking is also very important, often the issue is really and truly access to finance. And that many times is not just the women really and truly that need coaching. And this is maybe something linked to, aiming higher in terms of even sometimes your financial projections, which generally of women entrepreneurs are more on the realistic or the conservative side compared to those of a male entrepreneur. And then, that affects, for example, the perception of the investors. But more and more, there is a need for coaching amongst the investors. Because as Shironda was saying, sometimes they need the investors, especially male investors, to understand that the way they interact needs to be adjusted and adjust it not from a perspective of you know, I don't know, coming down to a certain way that women are behaving or interacting, but actually be able to interact with all different types of segments of the population, because it's diversity that is different. And male, especially older male dominated, you know, investment funds and VC funds obviously need to adjust to this. So I think important and most important is that we need to move a bit more from the training and coaching focus on some of the programs to actually more funding for women being made available. And I think even in the EU space, this has been happening in the last years. And I will just give you an example. There is this program, it's called the European Innovation Council Accelerator. And it's providing blended finance for the last 2 years or so, since June 2020, where it's actually combining grant financing with grants up to around 2.5 million to equity of up to 15 million. Now, what are they doing in terms of access to such finance for women? Part of the evaluation process at the interview stage, they are looking to have at least 40% of the companies, SMEs, being invited for interviews with women co-founders or with women at the C-level, the CEOs or the CTO and so on. And then there is also another objective for the selection process that at least 25% of the funded companies will have these women founders in them. So there is a need sometimes to sort of, you know, put the foot into the situation and into the door and start making changes.
I think just one last thing that I would add to that is some of these female entrepreneurs, they're not just having difficulty when it comes to getting the capital, but it's everything else that's an added value as well, such as the mentorship, the network, all of that sort of stuff. So I think as these female entrepreneurs are looking to raise capital, they need to look at the whole scope, because they need to look and find a partner that's actually going to help them in every aspect of growing their business.
Thank you so much, ladies. I just wanted to remind our audience that if you have any questions, then you can submit them in the Q&A section, or you can raise your hand and then we can share.
I think one final thing that we hadn't. Oh, I'm sorry. I think there might have been a delay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay.
We can't.
So one thing that I was saying was that one thing that we gain as women focused and men don't necessarily going to be as, I'm sorry, am I frozen?
Sorry, Shironda, I think we have a delay from you.
Okay, I will log in from a different location, sorry.
You sound perfect now, actually.
Oh, okay. So what I was saying was that sometimes when women are found as the businesses that maybe men don't understand, that are considered more women focused, women leaning, that's a missed opportunity, because if they don't understand the business, they're not going to fund it. So it could be something as simple as makeup or hair care products, or something that might be $1 billion industry, but if they don't understand it, they will not fund it.
I think we also, are you hearing me?
Yes.
Yes. I think there's some things we need to be aware of when we enter as women into a stage of a male-dominated industry. We have to be aware of what they're used to and try to build bridges. So they will have to be a little bit more patient and listen better and do their homework if they don't understand the menopause industry. They will have to read about this and ask questions. It will be their effort. And on our side as women, or I found this a lot with women CEOs, also have to be a little bit, come on stage with female elements, but also male elements. If you are a shy person, then take somebody from your team who's more outgoing, who's more able to, sell the moon and the stars, and you are more a realistic one. So go on stage with these both elements. You need to be nurturing and caring, female traits, typically associated female traits, but you also need to be outgoing, competitive, convincing, which are typically male attributes that we have learned in the Western world, for example. So make sure you go with both when you pitch, because that is, you know, human beings also have impressions, regardless of what you say or how good your pitch is prepared. You also have to convey this energy and this conviction in a way that the industry typically does. So I think it's good to be aware of these small things that can make a difference in the impression you leave after you have given a pitch, for example.
Okay, thank you so much, Nina. We have a question from Farouk. Farouk, would you like to ask this question, or should I ask out loud?
You take the question, Monica, it will be more efficient.
Yeah, okay, then let's do that. So we have Farouk's question. Can you talk about the stage of financing where VCs are less familiar with women entrepreneurs? Is it seed, early, or later stages?
I can just take a quick, stab at this one. Unfortunately, I think it's at the earlier stages when these VC groups, don't necessarily focus as much on these female entrepreneurs, but when they're a little later stage, generating $10, $15 million in revenue, I think at this point, which is very unfortunate, but I think at this point, these VCs are just seeing the money that's being generated, and that's more of a focus for them.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Daria. And thanks, Farouk, for your question. Farouk is at the World Bank, so thanks so much. Let's move on to the next question. Last year, women only received 2% of venture capital money in the US. Unfortunately, women of color receive even less. How can we help female founders with access to venture funding? Nina?
Well, it's very difficult to give a clear, objective explanation of this 2%. We keep reading this. And I think it has to do with various things. One is, as we said, the habits in the industry. Very male-dominated, we know this. So these gentlemen tend to look for, or have been looking for decades, for people like themselves, just younger. This is just what has happened. I think how we can change that, we can keep trying. We have to continue doing this. We have also to maybe think that this is a new generation of entrepreneurs, female entrepreneurs appearing. We also have a new generation of female-led funds. I am one of them. So we have to believe in this new generation of venture capital entrepreneurs we're building. That's the first thing. We have to continue doing this. I think one personal observation I like to share is that I find myself many times talking to female entrepreneurs and suggesting them to work in, or let's say solve problems that have a lot of economic potential. It's very important that if you put all this energy and effort to start a company, it has to be, as potential has to be significant enough for everybody to be worth the effort, not only for the venture capitalist who expects a return, but also for the entrepreneur, because the road will be always longer, more expensive than you thought, and it will be a lot of effort. It will be multiple years. So it is better, in my view, to make sure you work on a company that has a very, very large potential, rather than on something that is cute but doesn't bring a lot of potential in terms of all kinds of parameters. So I think that's something I keep telling a lot to many female entrepreneurs who have great ideas, but I try to work with them so that their business has a 10 times more important potential than the one they came to me to talk about. That's very important. If we want to be taken seriously, we have to concentrate on very important problems to solve. So that's one thing I like, just to make, share some of my humble experience here working with female entrepreneurs.
Thank you, Nina. Daria, your VC firm has its own fund, the NTV Prosperity Fund, which focuses on female and minority entrepreneurs, founders. I was just wondering if you'd like to add to that.
Yeah, so going off of the previous question that I had answered, when I said that these female and other minority entrepreneurs are having that trouble getting the capital at the earlier stages, what we're doing in our third fund called the NTV Prosperity Fund is we are only investing in female and other minority entrepreneurs in the pre-seed, seed, Series A stages, because that's the time that they need the capital. But not just that, that's the time they need us to come in and provide mentorship, guidance, the network, all of that to really get their company growing to the next level, help them get the right management team in place and all of that stuff as well. So I think now there are definitely more and more VC groups that have funds that are investing solely in minority-owned companies.
What I would like to add to this is that often it's really important, especially at these earlier stages, to try to build some visibility and traction in various other ways as a woman entrepreneur. To raise awareness about what you are doing and raise attention on what you are doing. And sometimes in this area, there are a lot of other initiatives, for example, going for certain awards, innovative concept awards or social initiatives awards or femtech awards or so on and so forth. At least in Europe, these are being spearhead more and more. So for example, there is an EU prize for women entrepreneurs. There is the European Institute for Innovation and Technology that has such initiative. Last year, the WeGate, which is Women Entrepreneurs Gateway network, also had an initiative. And besides the networks and the exposure that you can get through this, you also get some extra, vetting and backing from various types of organizations, which can help. And also often business angels, venture capital funds end up looking towards this sort of, support networks for identifying the entrepreneurs that are, sort of raising at the surface. So I would say go for other alternative, funding sources and go for other alternative ways of getting traction, visibility, endorsement.
Thanks so much, Anamaria. I see that Shironda has joined from her phone. Hopefully the internet's a little bit better. We had a question from Isabel. Isabel, I'll give you permission to speak just now. I hope it works. Let's see. Hi, Isabel.
Hi, thank you, Monica, and thank you also to the round here to, first of all, encourage, motivate, but also give some ideas and recommendations on how to go for funding. Yeah, so my question is about how did you get your first funding? And maybe you have a clue about what was the reason it worked out then? Was it communication or specific people you approached? Would love to learn. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks so much. How about Shironda?
Okay, well, so for Qodeo, actually Qodeo and Cupcake Therapy, what we initially did actually was we raised over $100,000 non-dilutive first. We did that through pitch competitions, accelerators, we had a $25,000 grant. And so that just made it easier for us to get started. Having this concept and going to angels and saying, or VCs and saying, this is what we're doing. The reality is for us, we just weren't getting the response or the traction that we needed. So getting the initial funding, having our MVP, setting up our platform, having everything kind of done initially and starting to generate revenue, that's what made it easier for us. And so $25,000 grant, $25,000 from additionally from Mass Challenge, another 17,000 here and there. So it just kind of added up to where we were then able to go ahead build out our platform, start our business, generate revenue, and then start talking to investors. Now, the other part of that, though, is that we actually had an investor come to us and offered us money just after a pitch competition. He just said, I want to fund you. Here's my card. Let's talk. It turned out it wasn't a good fit. It's Boston's small, so I won't get into too many details. I'll just say that it was someone who had another business that was complementary in his portfolio, and he wanted us to collaborate. And we didn't feel that it was a good fit for us, and so we declined, which might seem like a good problem to have when investors are coming to you saying we want to fund you, but you have to look at what the terms are. You have to look at what they're asking from you, because it's never just here's a check. There are always attachments. There's always something attached to it. And so the main thing for us was, like I said, just get the funding that you can get, and then build out as much as you can, and then investors will take you seriously.
Thanks so much, Shironda. Would anyone like to add to that?
Yes, maybe adding to Shironda, I think if you can, as an entrepreneur, identify non-dilutive funds, like Shironda was saying, trying to get grants or awards, that's great. Keep doing that as long as you can. But once you want to have investors, try to find out what is the profile of investor which best matches you. What is the community of investors who really can help you in the next 12 to 18 months to have certain access, to gain certain know-how, to deal with your patents, for example. So really try to be very specific with what you need, because as Shironda said, a check never comes alone. A check comes with somebody behind who can help you, and that's probably extremely precious. So the more targeted you can be with the profile you need from the investors, the less it will be for you, but also for the investors. So don't go to people who don't understand your area or are not interested in your area. Try to identify where these people are and reach out to them.
Okay, thank you so much, Nina. I just wanted to say that on Qodeo, you can get matched with entrepreneurs that aren't in your region, that you wouldn't normally be connected with, and you might find interesting. So it'd be worth signing up, registering. You can use code WOWQodeo just to register, and then you can enjoy 50% off as an entrepreneur for 6 months. Thank you so much. We have a question from, we have a few questions actually. Okay, sorry. Okay, I'll read this one out from Karen. I am hearing more and more about the rise in female investors in the very early stages. Many women angel investors, which is great, of course, but why is it that the later the stages and the higher the investment, female participation seems to go down? Nina, would you like to answer this one?
Yeah, I think, it's a question of we have a lot of female angels, that's true. And as the stages grow bigger, you need more money to participate, and there are less funds run by women. And the women who work in venture capital, and the majority tend to be in junior positions, not in partner positions. They cannot write a check. They have difficulties defending your case in front of the investment committee. So I think that's the reason why we may have less women at later stages, because there has been less of them, building funds, $100 to $200 million plus. That's probably the reason why. It's not because we don't want to, but there's no tradition. So we're building, that's what I was saying, we have to build this generation of women in entrepreneurial side and on the investor side, so we can work together.
I think also when you hear from, women VCs like Arlen Hamilton, for instance, she talks about the struggles that she has raising money. It's easier for her now than it was initially, but it was always harder for her than for her male counterparts. And so just as female entrepreneurs have challenges with raising funds, so do female VCs. That's just the reality of it.
What I would add to this, and this is an advice that I typically would give to the women entrepreneurs that I work with, besides really looking for all those different sources of funding that also Shironda was highlighting, going for grants initially, then afterwards, making your entry into the equity side and so on. Look for those female focused funds, because there are a few. I mean, there are at least some 12, 13 that I know about. There are also a number of women like, Melinda Gates, Susan Dell, Jennifer Buffett, and so on and so forth, that are really driving this wave. And you can really look towards those, investors that are willing and looking for female funders. I am involved in a number of networks in which the investors are actually looking for more women entrepreneurs to come for the pitching sessions, to choose, to have the pipeline to choose from. So it's a matter also of, looking for the right investors, both from a perspective of their area of focus, and also from the perspective of their, knowledge. For example, Nina was, as she was saying, if you work in, I don't know, something in the medical field, don't, just look out for any kind of investor. Start looking for those kind of investment funds that are focused on, I don't know, digital tech, med tech, whatever you are really into, and so on and so forth.
Thanks so much, Anamaria. I wanted to also add that on Qodeo, we have a field which is female founder focused that VCs and investors can choose, and that will also match them more specifically with female founders. Okay, thank you so much. We have a question from Debbie, which really relates to the question I'm about to ask. Do you know any programs or services that you would recommend to female entrepreneurs to help them build, scale, and grow their businesses?
I think it depends, is a short answer, on what you're looking for. Allraise is one tremendous resource for women entrepreneurs if you're looking to focus specifically on raising capital. So Allraise is definitely one. If you're, if you're earlier stage, then Mass Challenge was a great resource for us. So it depends on whether you're looking for something that will help you scale the business in terms of operations and strategy, or if you're looking for something specifically when it comes to fundraising. So it really just depends. And also some are regional.
There are some accelerators also that are made specifically for female entrepreneurs. I mean, female-founders.org. I mean, it's one where you could potentially go with your idea and your young team and start building your business. So I think you can look in the resources that are accessible to you, or try to also join an accelerator again that is specific to your area. If you're on blockchain, go to one that knows about fintech. They will also have the network and so on. So yeah, that can be a good thing. Make sure you don't do too much of that either. I know some entrepreneurs who love to go to all the programs and then they spend their life in programs, and that could be also a little bit dangerous. But again, I think the most important thing is that you try to identify what you and your company need in the next 12 to 18 months, everything in terms of knowledge, network, money, and then work with that. So make sure whatever you do, any minute of your time you spend is to fulfill your needs, the needs of your company and nobody else's.
Yeah. Anamaria, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, what I would add is when you go for this kind of, accelerators of programs of support, I would say it's even more important to go for those that are focused on your area, because often they themselves would be looking at further encouraging women entrepreneurs and supporting them further. Now, one of the things often that happens is that you might need other team members, possibly other co-founders. I would say look for supportive male co-founders, because it's ultimately from the mix of competencies, attitudes, attitudes to risk, even that the benefits would come out. It might even help you even more in terms of both access to finance and also, bringing balance into the overall approach to growing the business.
Mm-hmm. Thanks so much, Anamaria. Daria, would you like to add to that?
Sure. I think the only thing that I would probably add to that is similar to what Anamaria said, in that, go to, if your company's in health tech, find a group that focuses specifically in health tech. And they can also help you when you go for your next raise, because chances are they know the next VC group that's investing in the next stage, whether it be Series A, Series B. So like us, for example, even though we invest in these certain stages, we still have relationships with groups that invest in similar industries, but later stages. So I think that's also really important for entrepreneurs to think about.
Okay, very interesting, definitely.
And so I think the main thing is that we're all saying is just figure out, number one, what your end goal is, and then two, who will get you there. Is it the connections? Is it the funding? Qodeo obviously is excellent for funding, but is it the connections? Is it the funding? Is it, what is it that you want to get out of it? And then find the accelerator, find the program, find the network that gets you there.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Thanks so much, Shironda. We have another question from Karen. Where do you all see growth areas? Nina, perhaps?
Yeah, I think, it is actually, you can look at this question from various angles, but one is to look at the mega trends, important trends of things that are changing in society and technology. So each of you may have a different conviction, different readings, different sources, but we know that the whole infrastructure, tech infrastructure with blockchain is appearing. We're using, blockchain in all kinds of areas, from tracking logistics to detecting fraud. So that's a very important area where I see a lot of growth, a lot of deals coming from. Mm-hmm. Another one is artificial intelligence. Yes, it may be a buzzword, but all kinds of possibilities on how to process databases, how to minimize the energy to process them, how to do this in a more smart way. And that also applies to many different industries. So I think that's a second area. And everything else around energy, of course, the problem we have with climate. So energy related things, whether it's, quantum computing or finding new ways to develop capacity for computers. There are various areas. And obviously for this discussion, one very relevant area, femtech, obviously, which is trying to bring basically new products and services to the specific needs of women, which have been disregarded in so many areas, starting from academia up to the medical field and so on. So I think those would be areas that I found particularly interesting personally.
Okay, thank you so much, Nina. We have another very interesting question, this time from Ehab. And this is, I think, a question for you, Daria. What challenges arise after raising a fund?
I think I was going to say, I think every day there's something new. I wouldn't necessarily say challenges, but something I think that we have been noticing is valuations of companies are going through the roof. So we see some companies that are generating $100,000 in revenue with a $400 or $500 million valuation. So for us, it's really just been weeding out companies that have realistic expectations, or we also see companies that currently have zero revenue generated, and then in 2023 they have $700 million in revenue magically. Mm-hmm. So I think for us it's weeding out companies that and weeding out all of that fluff that you see, and bringing a lot of these companies back down to reality. And with us, when there's that much of a disconnect, unfortunately, there is no really discussion to be had, because there's no meeting in the middle there.
Daria, thanks so much. We have a question from Farouk. How do you find female and minority entrepreneurs? What is your investment rate or funnel versus investment?
No, I think those are both really great questions. So a lot of the ways that we find these female and minority entrepreneurs is, first of all, we've got an absolutely amazing investor base. So our investors, not only do they invest in us, they bring us a lot of companies as well. The typical outreach of pitch book, joining different webinars, just our overall network. And now our name is starting to get out there. So we have a lot of companies reaching out directly to us. But we try joining, whether it be in-person events or virtual events, all the time, where we can see all of these different entrepreneurs present and get to learn more about these companies. And then we also have great relationships with other venture capital firms, accelerators, incubators, who send us a lot of deal flow and a lot of companies that are of interest to us. And then the second part of that question, what's your investment rate, funnel versus investment? That's a good question. So I would say probably invest in about not even 1% of the companies that we actually look at. So we've got a pretty big funnel, and then very, very quickly we narrow those companies down. And then once we do diligence on the companies, that list gets narrowed down even further.
Okay, thanks so much. Another way to obviously find female and minority entrepreneurs, you can do that on Qodeo. So yes. And of course you can, Naples Venture Partners is also our Naples Technology Ventures, sorry, is also on Qodeo. So you can find, you can get free deal flow on Qodeo. Thanks so much. And we have another question. This is more related to the Ukraine crisis. I'm sure that for the past month, we have all been following the news, and more specifically, the war in Ukraine. It's crucial to help out any way we can. I'm based in Poland and I've been to the border. I've also been helping out at the Warsaw train station. So it's really important that we can help in any way we can. But I appreciate that not everyone is able to because they're not on the ground. But do you have any ideas how we can help Ukrainian refugees and support them? Maybe Anamaria?
One specific thing that I have been discussing recently with a few collaborators here in Malta is to actually look at this pool of refugees when looking for new staff, for example. Often we need to employ people, and nowadays so many can work remotely, many need relocation to different areas. So employment offers can be a good way to also help with the sharing of the load across Europe and possibly even beyond, towards the States or other areas. But then a key challenge that will be faced is to actually be able to have access to some sort of a database, some sort of inventory of the competencies and skills and languages spoken by these Ukrainian women. So actually I was speaking with someone that is also volunteering in Poland at the border. And I was asking if the various NGOs that are working there are also somehow offering this opportunity to women to register into a database, for example, so that if potential employers are looking for someone with a specific skill set. I have been recently looking for someone that would be able to develop a specific IT platform, but I just don't know where to look for this, potential employees, because I would like definitely to offer this opportunity to a Ukrainian woman, but how do you find them? So I'm just wondering who could help with that, who is doing that kind of, data collection in a way.
Well, why don't we use LinkedIn for that? I mean, I have been seeing a lot of people putting their profiles, their skills, and actually, I think we should encourage however we can, that people who are fleeing the country can really post their profiles very publicly. And I think I have this discussion today with my family because we're trying to see whether we host also people in our home, and that's a very delicate decision. But the fact, if I could know that this person has good chances to find a job, for me is much more encouraging, because once you have a job, you have a social contact, you have income, everything becomes more normal to you. So I think we should just, maybe Anamaria, sorry to be blunt about this, but I think why wouldn't we encourage, however we can, through other organizations, that people just post very publicly their skills?
I would very much agree with that. Did you see something like this on LinkedIn?
Yes, I've seen this. Yes, I have seen it.
Okay.
I've seen people, in their cars fleeing, writing, here's what I've done. This is my experience. I think we should see more of that, because in Switzerland, at any point in time, we have 70,000 open jobs for IT positions. Any IT engineer, male, female, would, is a very, very precious skill set in our job markets, for example.
Yeah, it's a great idea. I'll be looking for it. I was just wondering, with so many being on the go, I was wondering if they actually have the time to, or they are having so easy access to update the things. But yes, on the mobile nowadays, yeah.
I mean, technology companies are global. They have this incredible power, and most citizens in the world have some kind of device to an internet access. So I think we should utilize this incredible infrastructure, global infrastructure.
Thank you so much for this European approach. And I was wondering if we could also hear Daria and Shironda kind of explain how you see things, how you can help people, help Ukrainian refugees from the States, because obviously you're much further away than us. So I was just wondering what your views are on this.
Yeah, so I think money always helps, right? Money always helps. I know for us, we had actually kind of talked through, do we have some sort of, thing where for the next couple of weeks, the 100% of the profits go to, Ukrainian nonprofits, and then I just realized at a certain point, I didn't want to come off as, and this is with Cupcake Therapy, I didn't want to come off as like gimmicky. And so then it was just, let's just make a donation. Like, don't tell people we're doing all of that, because then it just sounds kind of weird. So especially when it comes to cupcakes, it just sounds weird. So we just said, you know what, let's just write a check. And so I have this friend, Adam, who lived there for a while, and he's in the States now, but he's the one that I go to find out what's really going on, because there's so much noise online and I don't know what's what. And so I just asked him, and he had this list of like all the different like legitimate organizations that you can donate to make sure you're getting the money where it needs to go, whether it's for the military, whether it's for, people who need to just survive, whatever the case is. He just had this list, and we were like, okay, let's just pick someone and just send the money there. And that just made it easier for us versus giving the wrong impression by having some sort of, cupcake, fundraiser. It just didn't sound right.
Yeah, I appreciate that. But Daria.
So I think everybody, was pretty spot on. So some of the companies that we have spoken to before, they have development teams that are over in Ukraine. Luckily, so far, every single one of those individuals has been able to get out, but it's just really supporting these individuals in such a tough time, really in any way that we can. And it's companies that have employees that are working there, the companies as a whole, how they can also get involved and best support these individuals and people.
Yeah, I definitely think that many volunteers are needed everywhere right now in supporting Ukrainian refugees. And if companies, for instance, could send employees for 2 hours a week even, or one day, whatever time, it could really help these Ukrainian refugees. So Simon kindly gave me 2 days off to to travel once to the border and once to work here at the Warsaw train station. And really, it feels really good to help, and you can see that you're making a difference. But I appreciate that if you're in the States, it's better to actually donate rather than send products or do some fundraisers, because they just need help as quickly as possible. So thank you so much. And I have one final question, because I see we're running out of time. Let's start with you, Anamaria. What is your number one tip for starting their own business?
For starting your own business, I would say go for something in your core area of expertise. It takes so much effort and knowledge that you really need to be well anchored into that space to be able to be successful.
Okay, thank you. Daria?
So I think, one piece of advice that I would give is to be confident, and not just in yourself, but in your business as well. And at some point, it's inevitable that you will get shut down, that you will get turned down, but you shouldn't let that get to you. If anything, I think you should use that as fuel to push harder and prove all of those that didn't necessarily believe in you and your business model wrong.
Thank you, Daria. How about Nina now?
Yes, thank you very much, Monica. As I said before, I think it's important that you try to solve a problem that is worth solving. And entrepreneurship is not something anybody is necessarily born with, but you become an entrepreneur. And as Daria was saying, it's a journey. It's a wonderful journey. It's also a choice, and it can be very challenging. But if you choose that route, then you will become a great entrepreneur. You just have to, like in anything in life, we have to put effort and time in it. And with a lot of confidence and goodwill, I have no doubt all of you will find their way.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Nina. And finally, our successful entrepreneur, Shironda. What advice do you have?
2 quick points of advice that really tremendously helped me to get to where we are now. The first was, as women, we tend to overanalyze, and we can analyze ourselves out of making decisions or out of trying new things. So just throw things out there and see what sticks. If you spend months and months analyzing versus weeks just doing it and seeing if it works, you can save time, and it might be an amazing experience. It might be really bad, but at least you know. The second thing is, this is advice that my dad gave me a while ago that applies to entrepreneurship or anything else, really. His solution to every dilemma is just hire somebody. And it seems so. I'm like, I don't know the budget he has, but the reality is we try to do things ourselves so much that it's like we just wasted months trying to do this one thing where we could have hired someone and they would have been done in a week. And so we try to save money, and that ends up costing us time and ends up costing us money, because then we have to pay someone to fix what we messed up. So if you can't figure it out, just hire somebody.
Very good advice, ladies. Thank you so much. And I see that it's time to wrap up. Thank you so much for your insights and taking the time to speak with us. And thanks to our audience as well. And I'll send you, as I mentioned before, I'll send you a quick survey tomorrow, most likely, because it's pretty late in Poland already. And hopefully we can organize more of these discussions in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Monica.